There we go.
What is up? Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to another live podcast.
Yes, happy new year. Happy 2024. New year, new deal. Let's go.
We got some cool stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about doing deals in 2024, what to look out for, what do we think is going to happen, what do we might think it's going to not happen. Who knows,
I think
right?
you have a crystal ball, you said, so you're going to tell the future.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to whip it out right now and go over all that stuff with you guys. So,
Yeah.
if you guys are watching this live, go to our Facebook group, grab the link for this and come join us. See you. So I'm super excited about 2024. I know a lot of people are saying rates are gonna go down, the market might get red hot again. There's a lot of stuff kind of going on right now. And I have some inside information that'll help you guys understand.
Ooh, insider info.
Oh yeah,
All
I've been
right.
paying
Yeah,
close
because let's
attention.
face it, like nobody has time to scour the web for all the things. So give us the lowdown. What should we be looking for, especially as creative finance investors in
So
2024?
I've watched not every video online, but I've watched everybody talk about how some people think the market's gonna go red hot again. A lot of them are realtors and they're hoping, right? Yay. Some of those are mortgage people who are like, hey, let's get some mortgages going because their business is taking a step down.
Mm-hmm.
You have all the naysayers who are saying, well, rates are still going to be high and prices are still going to be high. So I'm going to tell you guys the real deal.
Scoop.
Nobody knows. Nobody freaking really knows what's going to happen in
Nobody
2024.
knows.
Okay. It could go up, it could go down. Nobody knows. But I will tell you is what we're going to plan on doing for 2024 and maybe some opportunities for what you should be looking out for next year too. Okay. So as I've been doing this for 23 years now, I wholesaled my first house in the year 2000. I didn't even wholesale it. I technically did a double close. So the first house I ever owned, I was just turning 23 years old and I owned my first house for half an hour.
Did you even know what you were doing?
Well, I read this book that my buddy bought off a late night commercial. I watched this VCR tape that it came with, and I read, when I was driving my car, I popped in the audio cassette tapes. So did I know? I had no clue. But I knew if I listened to these tapes enough time and just do what it said and read this book enough times and just do what that said, eventually, even a blind squirrel will find a nut, right? So that's how I kind of figured I don't need to be good. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I just need to be consistent. I just need to show up more than everybody else, outwork everybody if I want to do this. And it's not like a competition me versus anybody
Mm.
else. But so many people are telling me, Joe, you'll never do this. It's not going to work for you. Right. And some of them even tried that before and it didn't work out for them. So for me, I just know that like if I had this information, just show up and I will eventually start getting some traction. The only people who ever fail are usually just people who quit.
Yeah.
Period. If you just stick with something long enough, eventually you start getting a little bit good at it, maybe, right? So as far as doing this the last 23 years, I've seen the market get hot a couple times, right? Any of you buying house in 03, 2004, 2005, watching it, 2006, houses are going over asking. If you didn't put in an offer for full price, you weren't going to get the deal. 2007, right? What was that even like? I'll tell you, it was kind of similar to what we just had a few years ago. Competitive market, everybody was buying, rates were decent. And by decent, I meant like 4%. So it wasn't like 2% like what we just had, but rates were pretty darn good, guys. And real estate was on the way up. And back in 2008, everybody hears about the crash. Well, it didn't just happen because of '08. It happened years and years before '08. It actually started happening in the 90s when our government started putting pressure on banks to start getting everybody mortgages, and everybody deserved the American dream. And then these banks started saying, fine, let's go. They were basically bundling up these bad loans and with some good loans and saying they were good and they were selling them off like crazy. So the banks were just going to be making money all the way down. And that's what it was like. It was an exciting time to be buying real estate. There wasn't Zillow. I don't think YouTube was around in 2001, 2002. Google was just a few years old, and
Google
that
was
really
just
wasn't
right.
even a crazy resource like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you were really doing is you're going to be meeting with other people the old fashioned way. You're going to be reading books, that kind of stuff. That was really what you had back then.
Well, I think now it's almost information overload. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
almost have to like catch yourself. If you are somebody who's watched all the YouTube videos and you're listening to the podcast and you're reading the books and you haven't done a deal, what would you tell that person? What do you
Make
need to
a
start
huge,
doing?
huge, scary goal for yourself. That 2024 is the year that I'm going to do my very first deal.
Focus on one deal.
One deal. And we're going to go over some of the things that will help you get that. But what I was going to get to is when the market was getting really, really red hot in 2007, it was crazy. Even beginning of 2008, market was still really good. Didn't start crashing to the fall. And that's when everything's just like that. But when you hear a real estate crash, the absolutely rock bottom prices didn't come until 2012, 4 years after '08, right? That's when the prices actually were at their lowest point was in 2012. In 2013 and 14 and 15, it started to trickle back up. So when people tell me I don't care about cash flow, Joe, I only care about appreciation, that's great if you bought in 2012. It really stunk if you bought in '07. '06. Why? Because your appreciation went backwards for a series of years before it even started to get back to even. You had to wait a decade to become even again, right? But in that decade, people who are cash flowing were still making money every single month, every single week, every year.
Mhm.
So, um, what do I look for going forward? Cash flowing assets that have really good rates, really good low payments. When everybody's looking for housing, and maybe now's not a good time to buy, maybe it is a good time to buy. I don't care. It's always a good time to rent. Okay. And people will always be looking for properties to rent all of the time. And if you have nice places that have low payments, you don't even have to have the highest rents in the neighborhood to rent your place out like that. Why? Because if you bottom smart, you might have a super low payment. So you could be a little bit less than the competition and get your place filled quickly all of the time. And you can be picky because you've got a million applications coming in of who you're going to choose. So it gives us some advantages, right? So in 2012, as the market started to dip, Jen and I started buying together in '08 when we did find that dip, when it was just starting, right? There was people were just getting scared. Banks weren't lending. I don't know if you remember that for a little while, but in 2008, banks stopped lending. Like certain banks stopped lending on mortgages. Some stopped even doing car loans, personal loans. Like all that stuff started happening back then. I was in finance in the car business. My job was to talk to banks all day long. That's all I did. It was kind of tricky back then, guys. We even had this big government step in, do cash for clunkers, whole other story. But we're going to talk about real estate today. But that's just what was happening in the world. Nobody could predict that was coming. Maybe a couple small, smart people did, but majority of people had no idea what was happening behind the curtain. And so today, nobody knows the same thing. There might be some people who got it right and say, hey, I was right. I said this was going to happen. Well, a bad clock's still right twice a day. Um, so with that being the case, how do you prepare yourself for next year? Is try to do your first deal, but make the deal make sense. Like I'm not big onto pressure, right? Trying to pressure yourself to make your first deal and then stepping into a bad deal. And I think I see that a lot. So one of our best ways to get into a good deal is you got to talk to a lot of sellers. You got to be able to chat to a lot of people. If you only get one lead a month, that's not giving you much to work with. You're going to talk to 12 sellers that year. You only have 12 opportunities. That's it's not going to give you much. But what if you could generate 12 leads a week? Does it up your chance or 12 leads a day? That's going to really up your chance of what? Talking to a lot of people, looking at a lot of opportunities, weeding out probably a whole bunch of them that don't make any money, don't make any sense. But when you start doing that, just like anything else, out of all of that, you sift all that dirt away, you might actually stumble upon a little tiny gold nugget, right? But it's by either a series of things have to happen. Sometimes it's just getting lucky. Sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you know what to look for and kind of build in your own luck, right? So we're going to go over what that looks like going over for next year too, because I think generating leads are important. But what do I do when I get them? And then first of all, how do I get them? So for how do I get them? I'm gonna get that out of the way. You should even get into this about branding yourself the right way.
Well, I think it's just important that if you can work on your mindset, because that's usually where it's stemming from. I'm worried about what other people are going to think. 'Cause I just happened to post today on Instagram and Facebook that like I too was really scared, guys. Like once upon a time, we had this silly little side business and people kind of rolled their eyes or asked questions. And you could just see like it was that uncomfortable feeling for me. I can't speak for Joe, but I was a stay at home mom. I had no idea what real estate really was all about. But here I was like trying something new with the rent to own, and we had rental properties. And so, yeah, like it was uncomfortable putting myself out there and people asking me questions that I didn't really know the answers to. But the more I did it and the more I became involved and the more I just went on social media and shared what we were doing, I became a lot more comfortable with it. And then deals started just falling into our inbox because people saw that we were putting ourselves out there. And then I switched my mindset and thought, well, it's not about me. I have to get over my own insecurities and really think about the person on the other side of this phone, a seller who truly is in distress, some of them, and they need their help. And if I could get over myself and put them first, then that's where everything changed for me as well. So if it's really a branding piece of like you don't have the confidence yet, it'll come. I don't, fake it till you make it kind of, but like you have to have some education to back yourself up. And maybe you're part of a group that could be there to support you. But at the end of the day, you have to put yourself out there to be able to help people. And that's what we're here to do.
Well, and you said it just right. Like you hear people say "fake it till you make it," and I kind of call a little bit of crap on that. It's got to be more than fake it till you make it, because let me tell you, when you're dealing with somebody's house
Mhm.
and you're dealing with sometimes the most expensive transaction a person usually has in a lifetime, you don't want to be faking it too much
Right.
while trying to make it on that one deal. You could be just darn right honest with somebody and say, just like we did when we hired new salespeople, hey, I am new, I'm just starting off, and I'm going to do my very best job to get all the resources done so I can do this the best I can. Just being upfront with people, they'll actually appreciate your honesty rather than them finding out the hard way that you don't know what you're talking about. So if somebody asks you a question, you should say, hey, I am new to this. I am super excited. I'm loving this business and I can't wait to help you out on this property. Right. If they ask you a question that you don't know the answer to, there's nothing wrong with that, guys. Let me write that. That's a great question. Acknowledging it or trying to BS it, that's the wrong way. The right way how to handle that situation when that comes across your desk, because it still does to me today. And I've been doing this for a long time, but there'll be situations that come across your desk. You're like, geez, I didn't see that coming.
Right.
So when that happens, guys, don't take it like you're surprised. Just get to the fact. You know what? That is a really great question. I am so glad you brought that up. I actually haven't heard that one before. So I'm going to write that down and I'm going to check and get back to you on that. And sometimes just being, not
Mhm.
sometimes, but just being open and honest and being a real human being, you'd get a lot further with some of these people. And they really tend to appreciate that a lot more too. So that conversation goes just like that.
I guess I meant like if you're posting on social and you haven't done a deal,
No,
like,
well, you said don't fake it till you make it. You
yeah.
said, still have some resources. So,
Well, right. But, I feel like that stops people. Well, I've never done one, so I can't post about it.
well, the whole point of that's right. Say, hey guys, I don't know many of you know, I used to do this or I still do, but now I'm starting to get into real estate now. And it's been really exciting.
Yeah.
And because of this, I'm able to talk to people who are in real estate problems. And it's really opening my world of all the situations that are out there. So if you're having a real estate problem right now in your life, I'd love to see if I could help. Reach out to me on
Mhm.
my Facebook page or whatever. You just do that little live, guys, and brand yourself on social media. Because now, if I didn't spend any money on leads, we had 3 leads come in yesterday, one already this morning, and he's working on a few others of off market properties where I have leads being dropped right into my email box from Facebook. Cool people. I don't know them personally, but they're saying, Joe, I know this is what you do. And we're following each other on social media and I'm working on some deals. So just branding yourself is like, I like to talk about helping real estate problems. And then here's the next step, guys. If you want some content, actually listen to a seller's story of why they want to sell their property. And you don't have to say like Janet Smith at 225 Mulberry Street wants to
No,
sell. It's
I
just a made
wouldn't
up
give away
name
all that. No.
and address. But I would say I talked to a seller today who wants to move back up to, north because they want to be closer to family, right? And we come across these situations all of the time. So finding out content, what to share in your social media is just by talking to people. So our favorite way of generating off-market leads, going direct to seller, is by telling social media who you are and what you do. I buy houses, and if anybody's got a deal they bring me and I buy it, I pay you $1,000 as a referral. One of our clients, he's been a real estate investor for 2.5 years, bought so many other courses, joined with us in December, just made his very first deal. Oh, I'm sorry. He joined us in July or August time. Just made his first deal in December. Why? He's like, I cold called, I drive for dollars, I did all these things. He's like, I just never thought to put up my own Facebook page that I buy real estate and I give $1,000 for referrals. Does a deal.
You just reach so many more people. He would even hand out at flea markets, which was a kind of a cool idea, like little flyers. Here I buy houses, but you got to walk around and hand a lot of flyers out versus just slapping a post up on your social media that can get shared like how many times? I mean,
And it doesn't cost any money to do that.
yeah.
So I think that was really important. And I think this is where this is all Jen's doing in a great way, because when 2016,
You didn't even have Facebook.
17, like I wasn't doing any of the stuff on social media,
Yeah.
guys, like at all. Jen was like, hey, we're outside of one of our houses. We should go live and talk about what we're doing here. Right. And just sharing with everybody what we were doing. Now, that could be you talking to a seller. That could be us showing off a property we just bought, or you did too, whatever that looks like. Right. But that's all we did. And we just did that consistently.
And changing your outlook, because I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't like Facebook because there's a lot of negativity. There's so much drama. Well, don't focus on that. You know, I don't go in there and start getting in all the arguments that can happen. I mean, I could if I wanted to, but I choose not to, right? I have better things to do with my time. So I look at it as business opportunities, helping other people, and really just sharing the great word of like how we can buy your house without having to go to banks, and really help you out of some pickles that we've been able to help some of these sellers.
Well, and the whole point of using Facebook, being smart and use it as a vehicle.
Yeah.
And, that's why on mine, like, I don't get into any of the major whatevers. I just don't. I don't care what's going on as far as that stuff goes. It's not going to be shared on my social media.
Let's share the love. Like, we
But
just literally spread sunshine and cheer and happiness, and like be that sunshine in everybody's lives. Because guys, aren't all of us sick and tired of like,
Well, one
the
of our
negative
realtor friends, I'm
Nancy?
not going to say who, just put how he got called into his boss's office at work because he's making political things on his Facebook page. And his boss said no. And now he's like, now I'm looking for another job. And you have half
Oh
his
man.
Facebook friends saying one thing, the other half.
Yeah.
I'm like, buddy, that is taken away from like what you do for a
You,
living.
you can't do that. You know, you just have to be very.
Create your own page if you want to talk about that stuff, like a hidden one that
Or
nobody knows.
don't waste your time. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna tell you what to do with your time, but that's like sacrifice, right? We talk about like where we have 24 hours in a day. Where are you going to spend that time? And for me, it was cutting out scrolling endlessly or watching a ton of Netflix TV shows, movies. We couldn't tell you what's cool anymore. And just like focusing on the one thing. And for us, it was buying cash flowing assets without having to go to banks and learning how to do that. It took us like over a year to really learn the strategies to be able to start implementing this, then to take it full time years later.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that was really the key to it. So here's where I thought about this epiphany yesterday. I was out back, was literally all the stuff that I was doing in 2016 didn't pay me any dividends right away. Any date night, anytime I was in my car, when I was at work and I had my computer playing in the background, when I had some minutes myself, I was always listening to training. All those courses that I had, that's all I listened to. If you and I were going to go out to a dinner together, be prepared to listen about some real estate stuff, because that's what I was talking about. I was eating, sleeping, drinking it, dreaming it, all of the things. But then I also was taking action too. It just took a while before we actually found out how to put some of these missing pieces together. And when we started having that happen, that's when everything changed. And we did our first deal, Creative Finance, in 2017. I started really diving in deep in this stuff in June of 16, May of 16. And we didn't do our first deal until we dropped a mailer, took some serious action, spent some money, got some leads, did a deal. $100 down, 0% mortgage, turnkey house. And that's when we were like, okay, we started to see something. And we put in our renter who did rent to own, and life was great. Did we become a millionaire right away? No, you don't. Right. But what did I do? I just bought a house that has 0% mortgage with $100 down that was turnkey, and I had to spend like $3,000 in closing costs, guys. So when we did that first deal, doesn't make you $1 million, but this stuff starts to add up, especially when you have these low rates and low payments and stuff like that. So when we started doing more of these deals, momentum breeds momentum. And then you get on that streak like, okay, cool. Like, where's my next deal coming from? Right? You expect it to happen. You're not just hoping it happens, but it happens one day at a time. So when I dial back to 2016, if I told myself 6 years later, I've already been working self-employed for 2 of those years. I moved to Florida. We now live in this type of house in this neighborhood, doing this for a living, full time, both of us together, and our kids get to be involved, and we travel and do all these cool things, making this kind of money doing this all across the country virtually. I would have been like, there's no way, you are out of your mind if you told me I was going to be doing this. I remember at my dealership, one guy did quit to do real estate full time, and I was his boss. And I'm like, man, that must be really cool for him to be able to do that. Here I am, like an idiot, not really paying close attention to what I
No,
should have been doing.
well, you had the golden handcuffs. And I think again, like our society teaches like play it safe, you'll retire eventually. Because I wanted to dive into that a little bit, like 401k, IRA, because I think that was like a really great asset that you had started, before I knew you, you had money like pooling into that 401k.
So that was one thing that I
Yeah.
will recommend. If you have a job and you have a 401k, you should be contributing to your 401k. You should be. Because one of the things that was really awesome for us is when I did finally get to walk away from my job, I had a really nice 401k. And what I did to help us with our real estate business, I rolled that into what's called a self-directed IRA, where now I could do real estate deals inside of my IRA. I could buy properties and sell properties and flip pieces of land and do this kind of stuff inside of a self-directed IRA. So one of the few tax loopholes left is that that profit could go back in your IRA tax free. So I found that to be really neat too, because there would be times where Jenn found one on Facebook Marketplace, this parcel of land that we bought for $8,000. We took the money from my self-directed IRA. It was 9,500 with closing costs, and we sold it for 26.5. Now we had to pay some commissions and fees out of that, so we walked away with 24,000. But to make a $9,500 investment and turn that into a $24,000 total deal within a handful of months, just buying, and we did nothing to the land at all. We just bought it and then resold it.
And I did ask for terms, but she said no.
Right. We did ask for seller financing, but the seller said no, they wanted cash. But it was a situation where somebody inherited this piece of land and they just wanted it sold.
Mhm.
So what I say by that, guys, is some of these little tiny deals that turn into a little bit of money, that starts to add up. The other one we found was just driving for dollars.
Yep.
We were out looking at a property we just bought on seller financing. As we were driving by, we found this little tiny lot in the village of Brockport, New York, which is a college town. And it was an empty lot, and it had a terrible little for sale sign on it that we had to call this guy
The
for
guy
months.
never answered.
Never would answer, but we called him. Same situation happened, almost identical to the previous one. Bought that in our IRA, and now the IRAs will just grow. Now we're buying real estate in those IRAs. And you could turn them into rentals. You could do other things with them. You could fix and flip them. It gives you a lot of opportunities. So even if you have just a little bit of money into a 401k, that's cool. You got to start somewhere. So at my day job, one of the things I was doing without realizing I was doing it is I just put as much money as I could in my 401k every year. So when it was time to jump, I had some extra cash that now has done quite well for itself. The second part of that too is what made me feel confident was we were able to buy real estate without banks and credit. I knew now I didn't need a W-2 to be able to walk away from a job, and I could buy all of the real estate we wanted without having to worry about how to get a W-2, stuff like that. The one thing that was scary as heck was, how am I going to generate all these leads? How am I going to find all these people who are going to want to say yes to this stuff, right? And we did mailers where we spent thousands of dollars dropping direct mail. It works. Gets expensive real quick. It definitely works. However, we've also made deals driving for dollars. We made deals by just posting on our Facebook page that we pay $1,000 for referrals. And I've got this one of my friends, my man, he wants every dollar coming to him. So anybody who says they want to sell a house next to him, he's like, oh, you got to go see my buddy Joe and Jen. Like they buy houses and they're going to probably want to buy your house. And not for nothing, I think I even gave him an extra grand because he the one deal. So now he's always on the hunt. And many of our friends are too, because that's what we got to do that again, that post. It's been a little while since I put out our
But yeah, if you've
post.
got friends who are driving around, like maybe they're UPS, FedEx,
Mailman.
yeah, pizza. I mean, if they are driving by for sale by owners, like take pictures, have them send them to you, like just letting like be very open to receiving these deals any which way, because you don't know if it'll work until you ask the questions, but let everybody know what you're looking for.
You just hit on the head, guys. Like she just nailed that. If you know anybody who delivers for FedEx, Amazon, postal worker, like one of the friends I went to high school with, that's what she does. She delivers mail. I'm like, well, cool. If you see any of these properties or you're not
Yeah.
getting mail there, like send that address my way. And if I buy it, I will pay you $1,000. And boy, would they love to get an extra $1,000 for just doing what they're already doing anyways, guys. So you turn it into almost like a little army working for you without you having to have all these W-2s and employees and all this stuff going around. I highly, highly recommend that. And that's why social media is so powerful if you use the right way. So if you're going to use it, use the right way. But my number one thing was, how do I get all these leads? And this is where, hey, Nick, how's it going? The one thing that really worked really well for us is when we started figuring out this Facebook hack. It was how to join Facebook groups, garage sale groups, community groups, I love your town group,
Mom groups.
farmers looking to date other farmers, whatever. I use that one all the time, but I'm sure there's like farmers only for Facebook groups or whatever. It didn't matter to me. What I was looking for inside of these groups was a large community, 10, 20, 50,000 people, 100,000 people in some of these Facebook groups. And what I loved about it is I could target anywhere we wanted to, because I was buying in Rochester, New York. So every Facebook group that was inside of Monroe County, which is the county outside of Rochester, any Facebook group that was Monroe County related, Rochester garage sale, any of the suburban towns that have their own little groups, I joined every single one of them. Every one of them. And I would consistently post in these Facebook groups, does anyone have a house for sale that's not market ready? I'm looking to buy one in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I'd change the color to some cool background color like blue or green or purple or pink. The idea is so it stands out from the rest of the posts in that group. And I always just did the simple blue background with the black letters, and I would post that in that group. And it didn't make a difference. If real estate was red hot and people put their house in the market and they'd sell in 15 minutes, there were still people who want to sell off market, who didn't want the parade of people walking through their house, and they'd spend the money to get their house sometimes market ready. So we still would find a lot of those. And when the markets are slow right now, we get some of those, and we get their listing agents too saying, hey, I've got a house that's not for selling, right? I get a ton of those right now too. Now, does every one of them work out? Of course not. Nothing does. If you could find something that just gets me a deal every single time, I would find me that way. But until then, I could generate off-market leads for free. Now, do I want to target Cincinnati, Ohio? Do I want to target Rochester, New York? Do I want to target Louisville, Kentucky? And I'm just pulling random cities out of my head. But all I got to do now is just find out what county that's in, make sure I join all the county groups, all the city groups, all the surrounding town groups, and every single city is going to have hundreds, if not thousands of these groups. Unless you're like, Abilene, Texas, where there might not be thousands of groups, but there's probably still 100. And I join them. And I don't join the ones that have 200 people in them. I join the one that's got 10,000 people and up generally. Make that silly little post inside that group. What am I going to get? In Abilene, Texas, I'll be getting leads this afternoon if I go do that, of people who've got an off-market property that they want to sell. So once we kind of crack the code that we could generate all of the off-market leads that we want anywhere around the country for free just by utilizing this strategy, and I don't have to spend thousands of dollars on lead gen, and I cracked the lead gen code, which is almost impossible to do, for free anywhere you want to target, I was like, okay, I know how to buy without banks, and now I know how to get as many leads as I want coming in without having to spend money anywhere around the country. And guys, this is really, that's what it is. That's what it comes down to.
And there's so many layers to Facebook too. So, it's not just joining the group. I mean, that's the killer strategy for sure. Join all the groups, be posting in there, but also don't sleep on Marketplace. Like Joe mentioned, we found a couple of land deals. Um, I've had other deals that we've acquired too because people post their for sale by owner on Marketplace. Maybe they didn't put it on Zillow for some reason. There's also Facebook stories. So if you're posting on your personal page, you can share it into your story. Sometimes some people will see that and not your personal page. Then there's also a Facebook business page. So you see, there's a lot of levels there. So it's not just like Facebook is one thing. There's a lot to be doing and posting with purpose. So it's not just, monkeying around for no good reason, but it's actually like taking time to curate, like Joe's saying, like tell people what you're looking for, an off market property that's, not market ready, that you'll give referral, all of that. And so it's just a continual, not to drive yourself crazy, but have a little schedule going. Like on Mondays, I do this. On Tuesdays, I check Marketplace. On Wednesdays, I'm posting in these groups. On Thursdays, so kind of create yourself a little system and don't go have, don't buy a CRM. Don't worry about a website. Right now, you just want to get really comfortable generating leads, ideally off market, direct to seller, and talking to sellers.
And that's really the name of it, guys.
Yeah.
If you could,
Simplify it.
our script, if you don't already have it, it's right on our website for free. CreativeFinancePlaybook.com. I'll say that one more time. CreativeFinancePlaybook.com. You could go on there, and this is the same script that our team uses when we have a seller reach out to us. The key strategy to what we're talking about is when you're implementing these posts in these Facebook groups, people are going to start reaching out. Or here's the other thing that happens. I'm going to give you a big tip. When you make that post, people are going to start commenting underneath that post. They're either going to say, I got a deal. What's your price range? You're a scam. I get those. Those are some of my favorites. So you got to understand you're going to get people who reach out to you. When somebody says, I have a property, I just send them a smiley face emoji, sending you a message, and then I DM them. If somebody says, what's your budget? What area? I'm flexible. What do you got? I always end it with me asking them the question. I'm flexible. What do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then just get into the DMs. And that's where the magic happens. And then what happens is when you get into the DMs, you use our script and ask those the 10 questions because we just got really good at asking questions that anybody could answer. Or I'm sorry, anybody could ask.
Both, really.
Well, yeah, and easy to answer too. And so once we gathered this information, this is what's going to give you a really good idea of exactly what's going on in the situation. What's their motivation? What are the numbers going to look like? I don't have to give them an offer. They make us the offer by asking them the right questions. And then once that happens, if it sounds good, get on the phone with them and talk to them. That's the benefit of it. If I could generate 10 leads today, I don't have to be on the phone with all 10 of them because there's 3, 4, 5 hours of my life gone. Right. So if I ask 10 questions through messaging, which I could do in a few minutes, I could then say, okay, out of these 10 leads I got today, I need to call these 3 on the phone. Like that's a good one. I want to talk to them.
Yeah, we have Jeremy here says, I used your script today after getting a Facebook group lead 4 hours ago, and I have a phone call appointment in 30 minutes to talk to us.
Oh,
Ooh,
there we go,
that's
Jeremy.
the way to do it.
Great job.
Yeah.
It's guys, I wish we could say, oh, it's a super hard, tricky thing. It's just, here's the technique. This is why we don't keep it as our secret. We share it with all of you guys, of course.
Yeah.
Get leads for free. We hope you do. Get as many leads as you can. Sift out the ones you want to talk to and make sure you talk to them. And it's just taking action. I listened to Jim Rohn this morning and he really brought something cool. He's like, when people get into like just constant learn mode, he was like, imagine just you want to build a house and you just keep on every day just delivering more materials and the siding there, the windows are there, all the bricks are, everything's there, but yet you're not building the house.
Oh,
because you didn't take any action. I'm just learning. I've just got all the lumber there. Everything's all ready to go, but I haven't taken any action. If you do that enough times, they will put you in a loony bin. Okay? Because they're going to think you're crazy. So the same thing goes is get all that stuff, but then get ready to start taking some action. And so lead gen, guys, Facebook is one of my favorite ways to do it. This is why we talk about it. My Instagram is just there, but I don't connect in Facebook groups. Like, you can't do that on Instagram like I can with Facebook. So that's why Facebook's my preferred one.
I've never found a seller on Instagram. So if I were to do it all over again, I would do the same way we did it. I would not be trying to post on all of the platforms because that's so overwhelming. I would focus on sellers because that's where older people are. They're on Facebook. They have a Facebook account and they have houses they want to sell.
Well, it's also crazy. 71% of the US has a Facebook account.
Okay.
71 of the population has 71% of the population. And it's like 200 and something million people.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a lot of people on Facebook. TikTok, Instagram, they're cool for maybe talking with other investors. But when I'm looking to talk to sellers, Facebook's the place to be. And these Facebook groups are a treasure trove of this. And when we've learned how to do this virtually, guys, you don't have to be at the property. Believe it or not, it's going to be kind of scary, but you could hire somebody to walk through it who actually probably knows what to look for, sometimes better than what you might look for. So if I find a screaming good deal in South Carolina like we did, and the seller says, I know you're going to make a ton of money on it, and I don't care. If you give me 100 grand, this thing is yours. It needs some work. We bought this mobile home for 100 grand. We put 20,800 worth of renovations into it. It's now completed. Hooray. It's going on the market in 24 hours. And I think we're going to list it for probably close to 200 grand. We're going to sit after you pay real estate commissions, probably about a $60,000 profit, only doing $20,000 worth of renovations to a mobile home. She's looking good now. Okay. She wasn't the prettiest. Now she's an award winner.
Can't wait.
But it's sometimes you'll find these leads. So when somebody says, no, I won't do seller financing, ask them always, what's the best cash price they would, what's the least you'd take for cash if I were to close when you want, buy it as is. Write that number down. If they say that's not a deal or no to seller financing, and I'm just not sitting on a deal, the next big step, I hope you please implement this in your business more than writing it down. Write it down, but you're going to be surprised how simple this is. Follow up with every single one of them until the property is sold to you or someone else. If you want to get through the rat race a lot sooner and not feel like you're just running hard, spinning your wheels, if you're only looking for people who are going to say yes on the first time, and if they don't say yes on the first time, you throw that lead in the garbage and you don't ever talk to them again, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to say, this doesn't work, Joe. It only works for you and Jen and thousands of other people. It doesn't work for me, right? It's not true. The real key to it is the deals that we're making now. Sometimes I've talked to these people, but Lexi has talked to some of these people weeks ago, if not months ago. I've got a lead that we're working on right now. I swear they reached out to us November 2020 and they still have their house.
You told me that yesterday. I was like, what?
I was like, look they started talking to us over 3 years
Still
ago.
has it for
And I'm
sale.
like, do you still have the house? And like, I still do. And I'm like, well,
Where's the motivation?
right. But what happens is this, when you talk to somebody the first time, unless they are they're at the point where that straw that broke the camel's back and they're ready to sell right then and there, then you might get one, but it's a small, tiny percentage. Sometimes I'm thinking about selling it down the road, and it might not be today. It might not be next week or next month or even the next 5-6 months. It doesn't matter. But if you're consistently following up with them, whenever they do get to that spot of they're now motivated and now is the time to sell, you're going to be the person they think of. So don't be disappointed if you talk to a million sellers and not everybody says yes the first time. Now, once again, going back to my even a blind squirrel finds a nut, like you will find people who will still say yes on the first time. It happens.
It does happen.
But don't count on that. If you can get good at doing both, generate a lot of leads, talking to them, hopefully you'll get some that say yes on the first time, and then just be a ninja at following up with everybody else until they say they sold it. This will speed your process up way faster. This will get you way to wherever you're trying to accomplish much, much, much faster. Please, I wish you could do this because this is one of the things that changed it for us is when I stopped trying to rely on my piece of paper and my chicken scratch handwriting. And I wrote it on this sticky note, but honey, where is that sticky note? And meanwhile, my whole office had sticky notes. And who knew where that one was that I had to call right then and there? Meanwhile, I'm at work saying, babe, it's the one on the wall. And there's 50 million of them on the wall. No, get the one, right? Like it's super terrible. Maybe that's why it took me a little longer.
So what would you suggest?
Get good at follow up. So if you don't have any money, there are two things you could do. You could write it down on a piece of paper, and they make these $12 accordion folders on Amazon. We're going to go prehistoric just for 5 minutes. Okay. There might be some guy like me who's like that kind of stuff, right?
Hey, I grew up with the library with like a card catalog.
Right. But there's 31 tabs and it's actually number 31. So if today's the second, and I know I have to follow up with John in 1 week today, I'm going to open up spot 9. I'm going to slip his paper in there, close it. And every day I go through my spot. And then when I'm on spot 9, it's the 9th of the month, there's John. I'm following up with him. Anybody could do that one. Okay. Now, if you want to spend no more money and you want to spend a little bit time technology, there's CRMs are out there for free. I think there's like what Podio. I don't know it. I don't use it, but I believe that's a free one. There's a probably if anybody's got one in the chat you want to drop that you know it's free. And then there's some paid ones. Okay. You could also spend money too. However, your flavor is, you can get an Excel sheet if you're really like the master Excel person.
I would even use Google Calendars. Put the name, the address, the phone number, and pull it back up every 30 days. Call that person up. Hey, or even message them. Hey, Sue, is your house still for sale or did you sell it?
It's really that easy.
That's simple.
So what we have to get really good at in our business is follow up. So here's one good follow-up tip I have for everybody. You're going to talk to a seller first time, last time, however times it is. When you ask the first few questions, tell me about your property. Number 2 is why do you want to sell it? If you sense high level of motivation, high level of desire, that should kind of go in its own special spot. Highly motivated. I've got some people like, hey, I'm considering selling my house at the end of summer next year. And I'm like, call me in 8 months. Like, not really, but you know what I mean? I have some people who are like, hey, I need to sell this place because my job's transfer me, or I'm in the military and I just moved to another place and my house is sitting there vacant and I can't afford 2 payments. That's the kind of person that's probably highly motivated. Rather they say yes to your deal or no to your deal, that's somebody you're going to want to definitely follow up with, probably even a little bit more frequently than just every 30 days. Right? Because they are highly motivated. They're in a situation, right? And this is where we could come in and help them. If they're not in a situation, there are plenty of times where they want all the money for their house. They won't do seller financing. They got to have cash. I'm like, if you consider listing with a realtor, I'm not one, but you know, you could find probably a really good realtor in your area. No, I don't want to list it with a realtor. Well, then if you don't, this is how I could do that. This is how I could buy it and make it make sense, guys. So it's just learning how to have the conversations, what to look for.
And one thing to throw out there too is that you can be really flexible with the closing date because we have one right now. She keeps moving the date further back, further
Now she's
up.
moved it up on us.
Now she wants it up, but you have the flexibility. So if that's the problem, sometimes again, it's asking those questions to your sellers and seeing like what might be the holdup, why they aren't going to sign with you. And then when you explain, oh yeah, well, I can change the date no matter, if it's next month or you need 3 months to find a new place, like I'm totally flexible. Like just sharing that could help push that deal into your favor as well. Because if they're going to list it, then things might be a little bit more strict or stringent timeline wise. So that's a really great thing, along with letting everybody know that, guys, you buy as is. I cannot stress that enough. I had no idea getting into this business how much stuff people can acquire through the years and what a stressor that is when now it's time to sell because they don't have the funds to get a dumpster, or maybe they don't have the desire to have to physically move it out. Or
what it's like, dear.
Oh, it's a lot of work. Next thing you know, you're throwing out Christmas decorations that you probably shouldn't have and wondering where they are a year later. But the point being is, telling everybody like take what you want, but leave what you don't. And let me deal with that. And taking that pressure off of them again is just letting them know like you're really here to help. And I think that when we come from a place of compassion and understanding, like we're all human beings and we all have stuff. I'm here to help you. This just shouldn't, it's stressful enough to sell your house. Let me take that burden off of you.
And you know what? I'm going to be keeping it real with y'all for a minute on a real deal, real live time.
Real time, real deal.
Okay. So Julie reaches out to us August 20th, 2023. saying that she wants to sell her house. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, almost 1,800 square feet, has a bonus den on the back of the house with French doors each side of the den, had a metal shed in back, only about 2 years old. AC was new, put in 2018. Score. Because we bought this house and we're closing on it Friday in Pensacola, Florida. Okay. This is somebody we talked to August 20th. So if you think about how long it's taken to get through the whole cycle with her, we asked, why are you selling? I just want to be able to pay things off and not have to worry about so much house and maintenance, want to downsize. When do you want to sell it? Not too much of a hurry. Maybe at the end of the year is when she wants to sell it. Depends on the cash offer. It's really just needs like paint and stuff like that. The pictures are online were great. She owes 111 on it. We end up paying it for 150. She owes 111. She just wants to get her check and not be in this big old house by herself anymore. Guys, when we look at current sales in that neighborhood right now, they're going for about 290. And this house is nice. She just bought it in 2019. And if you look at the pictures she sent us, compared to the pictures that were on Zillow before, and you'll get to see it because we'll share it when we close on it. But this is the whole point. She wanted to talk back then, but she wasn't ready then. Then we decided we were going to close in November. Then she says, no, I'm going on vacation in January. So I want to close on it right before I go on vacation. So end of January turned into, hey guys, she reached out to us last week and says, I need to close Friday. Like this Friday. I'm like, okay, let's go. But
See
this
how
is what
quickly
happens.
title
So
companies can make sure.
when you deal with sellers, they're in all types of situations, why things happen. You got to be a good problem solver.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
You got to be able to be a human being and learn how to help people the best you can, right? And have a passion for it. Because what's really neat is, don't get me wrong, what all of us got into was to make money. And anybody says, oh, I just love helping people, that you're so, go join the Red Cross. We're here to make money. Okay. But now if I could actually make a whole lot of money and help people, I'm like, okay, wait a second. This really now aligns to what I like to do. Because I know this lady and all the reviews that we get from our sellers. The last one we bought, what's the other one in Florida we just closed on? Westminster. Oh no, that's the trailer in South Carolina. What's the one? Williston. She was crying on the phone with Lexi.
Oh,
She was so happy, like legitly, like shedding tears. She was thrilled to be able to close when she wanted to. So like when you get to hear seller stories like that, guys, it's really, really cool. So in this situation right here with Julie, we started chatting with her way back in August, but now we're finally able to close that deal come this Friday. It's a great deal for us. She's happy. She was able to do all of the things that she wanted, sell it to us as is, right when she was ready to just call me up and say close. We're going to be there with the money, ready to give it to her. Super exciting. Didn't see this house. Pensacola is like 6 hours from us, maybe. I'm not going to go see it. We just talked to great people in the area who know the area, know the drill, and we have a great deal. So part of what we're doing, guys, is we're helping people. Yes, making money is not a dirty word. That's what we're here for. Right. But make sure we can align both those together. It's even better. So generate leads, branding yourself on social media, talk to sellers, see how you could help them, learn how to do cash offers with creative financing is another option. Because so many times a seller might not want to give you that big cash discount like Julie did. And so many times for some reason, maybe she owes too much and they just can't give us that big discount, right? Because they just bought it. That's where seller financing and creative financing comes in, because I can pay more than anybody else can for the property as long as the rest of the terms look great. So what does that mean? In Tampa, real estate now was red hot, guys, red hot. It was like one of the top hottest places in the whole country. You put a house in the market, immediately it was on fire, and there was a line of people standing on the front, like throwing money at it. Now it's starting to stockpile. Inventory is going up. Rates have went up. Prices have gone up dramatically. What used to be 300,000 is now 900,000 for the same house, and they didn't do anything to it. They just know they could get 900,000 for it, and they do. So that's what happens here. That was cute when rates were 2% and you're buying the house at, 600,000, 700,000. At 900,000 at 7%, it's slowed down. Right? They say Tampa might even come down on pricing a little bit.
Oh,
If it does, but I could buy one of those deals where they had a 2.5 interest rate on it and my payment's super, super low, guys, I don't care. I don't care because I know what the payment would be on that. And the only ones that I'm finding that cash flow in a market where everybody says if they don't cash flow here, we only buy for appreciation. You could find some really good cash flowing properties on houses that are just even a year or two old because the rates were just so low a couple of years ago. So whether they recently bought it or recently refinanced it, there's a lot of money out there where it's at super low rates. Those are what I am targeting like wild for this 2024 year. So if I could give you some things to look for, if it's a bad year, good year, don't make a difference, guys. You can make a lot of deals just by learning how to do creative finance. If they don't owe any money in the house, you can negotiate all of the terms, rates, payments, all that. I love when people say, "Oh, I amortize it over 50 years." I'm like, what are you doing? Just say you're going to give them this super payment and that's all it is. Like you could design it however you want to do it. So if they have a mortgage in place and you know they have a really low interest rate, especially if they're highly motivated, you follow that lead forever. That's like your bone. So stay with it. Don't let go.
yeah.
And then look for the cash offers too, guys. Once again, we're making a lot of those right now. And those are working well too. And you can still wholesale it if you don't have the cash or team up with somebody and flip it if you truly wanted to, if it's that great of a deal.
But we never give the cash offer. And I think that again is why I like sellers like working with us, because sometimes they get really offended if you throw out a cash offer.
Well, do you know what happened with our Florida house? The one we closed on. So the lady wanted 150 for it. The house we found out was worth in the low 200s. We wanted 150. We said we would do it with seller financing. She says, no, I don't own anything in the house. I really want my cash. And then she called up Lexi. Remember that time? She was like freaking out, crying. She's like, these people just gave me an offer for
Mhm.
110 for my house, and they were complete. Called them a
They
couple
weren't
of
very
swear
nice.
words,
Yeah.
and they treated her really badly. And she's like, if you could do the same deal, I'll do it with you guys.
Mhm.
And I call up Lexi. I'm like, make that deal right now. Like, just because she loved Lexi. She loved talking to Lexi. Why? Because she's just nice.
She was nice. She asked the questions. What did she need for her property? What's the least she would take? You know, she wasn't throwing out silly numbers that are going to make her upset.
And that's what happened. A lot of people
Yeah.
gave her a crazy low number and made her upset. Did all the egg breaking for us. We just came in to clean up the mess, and it worked out really well. So guys, stick to just finding leads, talk to sellers, make sure the deal makes sense and the deal works for you and it worked for the seller. Because just because they say yes to a deal doesn't mean it's a deal.
Mhm.
And then just make it happen, guys. So the rule for 2024, if you have not done your first deal, make a target by June 1st, you're going to do your first deal. You could do a deal in 6 months. Believe me, you could do your first deal in 6 months. Okay. If you've already done deals before and you want to do your next deal and you want to use creative finance, make a goal of how many you want to do this year.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be just one. And if you want to do just one, there is nothing wrong with that. But if you decide with this lead gen we talked about earlier, you want to do 2 or 3 deals this year or way more, it's the opportunities are it's endless.
But it's more than just putting it on the wall and say, by June 1st, I'm going to have a property. It's okay. By June 1st, I'm going to have a property. So what does that mean? That means every day I'm going to be doing something moving toward that goal, posting on Facebook, calling up sellers, asking the questions, connecting in realtor group or real estate investing groups in the area, showing up at meetings, you know, just kind of like putting yourself out there more than you ever have before.
And I will say, coming from you, that's impressive because when we go out to public events,
Ah.
tell them
No.
she's a little bit more of she's
I
quiet. So Jen grew up out like in the country setting, or I grew up more of a city setting. So like going to meet all the kids in the neighborhood, like that's just what we did. Jen's a little bit more quiet. You would never know by meeting her, but she puts herself out there and puts herself in these.
What is it, an extrovert or introvert? I don't know.
Yeah, oh
I
yeah.
love to just be curled up with a book reading in my room, but I will go and network
And
when need be.
and if
And I
I
will
could be,
host meetups.
yeah, if I could be at a meetup over that, saying home, like let's go. I love
Yeah.
it.
Like bigger pockets. I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to go. It's a really big meetup. But we went and we had a great time. So do the scary thing. Get uncomfortable. It was another post I did today. You know, be
That's
really
why
great
I was saying that.
of getting uncomfortable. Quick question here, and then we'll wrap it up. Regarding creative financing option on an already paid for property, is it true that you cannot offer 0% and it must be at least 3%?
That is not true. You could offer whatever you want to offer. We have done deals with 0% mortgages. There's certain rules that apply about with the IRS and punitive taxes and things like that. But that is if the property, I think, is over 300 or 350,000. Bunch of the houses we did on were under that. Didn't matter. We have 0% mortgages currently right now too. So yes, you can offer that. And many sellers, if I'm able to pay their price, they're happy because they got their number. And if I could pay them 0% mortgage, I'm thrilled too. And that's how sometimes that makes that work.
Yeah, and this next one, ugh, these are the frustrating ones. What if they have a higher interest rate and the monthly PITI is way more than market rent? I'm working with a lead in a situation that bought 2 months ago, and they're underwater by 20K.
Yeah, those are tricky, Jeremy.
Mm.
So we see a lot of those right now. So what does that mean? Somebody just bought a house and they might have like a 5, 6, 7% rate or even 8%, right? And if they just bought it and they have a high rate, and now I look what their payment is monthly, and then I look what can I rent that for? There are some people where it is $1,000, $2,000 a month less to rent it than it is to own it. And there are some people in those situations, and the ones that are the ones that generally have a high interest rate, right? And that's what's correlating to that. Those right there is really not much we could do on those deals.
The only thing I can think of is a homeowner who's
You
like
might find
in
a
a hot
homeowner that would
area.
want to do it. Yeah, I mean, you
Is it
can,
Florida?
right? So what does Jen mean is sometimes you could find somebody who would want to take over that deal where it could be assigned to them. Most likely that they're going to be a homeowner that really doesn't care about the payment. They want the fact that they could be in a home ownership position without having to go the bank route.
Mhm.
So there is some value there to some people, especially if the cost of entry isn't a whole lot. Um, However, especially where we live right now, if I were to buy at today's prices and at today's interest rates, it's $2,000, 3,000, 4,000 less to rent the house than it is to actually own it. And that really puts it in a really, really weird situation. So the deals that I'm looking for are the ones where they do have those 2, 3% rates. I know if somebody has an 8% interest rate, 7% interest rate, I automatically know right off the bat, there's not a whole lot I can do with those deals. So just be mindful of that when you're talking to them. We had one, we were actually on a podcast being interviewed, and the
Yeah.
lady interviewing us, she's a realtor. We explained to her how we could buy, and she says, that's what's going on to my neighbor right now. He bought the house, new build in Missouri, gorgeous house, really nice neighborhood. And he moved from his job and he lived out of the state now. He was making this payment of $3,000 a month. I talked to him on the phone because I've looked up his address, found out who he is, skip traced him, got his info, called him, was like, hey, buddy, do you want to sell this house? He was like, I would love to. I had it in the market, it didn't sell. I said, what's going on? He said, I lived there only for 6 months. This house needs nothing besides the grass being cut. And my job took me out of state. And now I can't afford that $3,000 payment and my new payment. And so I want to sell that house. I said, well, if I were to buy it, and he told me he owed 375 on it. I said, well, if I were to buy it, would you sell it for what you owe? And he said, I would. I said, okay, the way I would buy that is I'd buy it and I'd buy it with seller financing, which means I'll just buy it from you, but I'll just take over your old mortgage. And he said, I don't care. You could do that. That's fine. I said, great. What's your payment? 3,000 a month. I'm looking at rentals, 2,200 in the neighborhood. There's actually one across the street, like 4 houses down, twin to his house. It was 2,200 bucks they were asking for rent, and it was sitting there not renting. And his payment's 3,000 a month. And I tell him, boy, I wish I could make that deal happen, but there wasn't anything I could do in that spot. I couldn't buy his house for what he owed, pay 3, 4,000 in closing costs, just to lose 800 bucks a month every month. Right. So what happened was he ended up letting the bank take it back, and they did a short sale on it. So that's what happened in those situations. We're going to come into more of these guys, especially if somebody's recently buying a house. So when somebody says now is the time to buy real estate, at today's prices and at today's rates, boy, that you're going to be in a tough situation if you're going to buy something and have to sell it, or if you're going to hope it's going to cash flow. So this is the way going forward, no matter what the market's doing, creative finance is certainly a way to do it. And we've been learning about it in 2016. Nobody was talking about it back then. 2017, 18, same thing. Now everybody's and their grandmother's talking about it because moving forward, this is going to be one of the only ways you're going to be able to buy cash flowing real estate from the time being. Now, if the Feds drop rates next year, hopefully they do. I think they'll spring something. I just still think even if they drop at a point, today's prices, point less in there, try to figure out if you can cash flow on that. Good luck. Not going to happen. So in order for it to make a difference for somebody like us, we need to be back in those 2 and 3% rates again in order to cash flow because houses have jumped up in the last 4 years in price significantly. And rents really haven't changed that much. And in some places, they're kind of peeling back a little bit and going down. So you just got to be mindful, guys. Once again, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So what am I looking at? Cash flowing assets that I could buy with really low interest rates and really low cost of entry. I don't want to be paying 100 grand down or nothing like that. We buy typically with no money down.
Boom.
I think we covered it, gang.
I was going to say, so I was going to throw one more question at you. Looking back at 2023, is there any lesson that you learned or any advice you would give to our audience or to your future self?
Yeah. Okay. I do. So in 2023, I think we saw a huge shift in the market. I think we saw interest rates jump up so quickly, like record paces. And so this is where, once again, guys, I know a lot of real estate investors. I know a lot of realtors who are no longer a realtor or are going to just let their license not renew it. Okay. So here's the one thing I will promise you. The market goes up and it goes down. Okay. Get real good at learning an art that surrounding that, it doesn't matter. And you'll always still be able to make good and great real estate deals. If you just tie it into the market, basically prices going up, interest rates go up or down, you're tying your whole business on what other people control. And that makes it a really, really big challenge if you're going to be doing this long term. I've worked with some really great investors who've been buying since like the 80s, and they say it always does this. It ebb and flows. Overall, it goes up. Overall, over time, it does go up, but it's a slow moving vessel, real estate. So if it crashes, it doesn't just drop off in one day. It takes years to crash. If it recovers, it doesn't just recover in one day. It takes years in time to recover. So just remember, as that's going on, you're still going to want to be accumulating these cash flowing deals, guys, and buying them right. So buy right 2024. From what I learned from 2023, it was a wild year, right? And I know a lot of people didn't survive. And if you're buying using your own credit, borrowing and all the stuff like what we used to do like a decade ago, that stuff's going to be washed out for a while. So learn how to do this creative stuff, implement these strategies that we talk about, generate these leads, ask the sellers questions, get on the phones, make deals, and everybody will win.
I love that.
I mean, really, it's not that hard. I wish it could be like cool and say there's some like magic formula.
No, I think the magic formula is hopping off of this Zoom and going and doing one of the many things we just suggested. So if it's a Facebook business page, if it's a live video, if it's a Facebook post into a group, if it's just simply making a post on your personal page, say, hey guys, I'm looking for a house to buy. If anyone knows, send me a message.
So how about this? You want to do a little contest then?
Okay.
Why don't you go do one on yours? And
Can we go live?
Go live
All
and be
right.
like, hey guys, and just show them what it's about. So guys, if you want to see,
I mean, I already went live on Instagram and I already posted all over, but I'll go do that.
hey, there's nobody better than you.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna do it too. I'm gonna do my $1,000 referral.
Oh, there you go.
So if you want, go watch Jenn on Facebook, watch myself on Facebook. You'll see it today live. Exactly what we do. You're like, oh my God, that's all I gotta do. It's that easy.
And you're catching the replay. You'll have to scroll back to January 2nd.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Catch there. All right. Happy New Year, y'all. This is the year. If you haven't done your first deal yet, you're gonna do it this year. Make yourself a goal.
We're cheering you on.
And if you have already done a deal and you're looking to do more deals, guys,
Let's go.
write your goals. Let's go do it. Put that stuff to work. That's why we're here dropping this next Tuesday. Every Tuesday, we have some great stuff. Check out the YouTube channel, Creative Finance Playbook. On all of the podcast channels, we're on there, Creative Finance Playbook. And then make sure you're in our Facebook group, Creative Finance Playbook, Joe and Jenn.
All right, guys.
Joe.
Have a great start to your year, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.